Hey everyone, it's Saturday. That means it's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have everyone with us. For those of you that have been watching our show on a week by week basis, thank you so much. Subscribe. If you're new, subscribe. AI. I know we've been talking about it. I know everybody, oh my God, AI, but you can't escape it. It's
You
gonna
can't
talk about
escape
it.
it.
As a matter of fact, channel two, but CBS is going to talk about the Chat GPT revolution. They're going to do a whole series on it. That's how big this whole thing is. But Nadine, give me your thoughts on AI and how it will make a difference for businesses. What are your thoughts on that?
The topic of AI, it's always there's just so much going on in AI. AI means so many things, and I think since it's so new, people have a hard time contemplating even what benefit does AI give to their business? I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about is business, how it impacts business. Yeah, well, personal stuff, that's one thing, but how does it impact business? What are some of the businesses doing?
Yeah.
How can it transform business? There are a few, we'll talk about 5 different ways that AI is impacting business, and this is happening right now. The first thing that we see, uh, especially for developers, it's increased efficiency, right? People are just more efficient. There are applications now where you can have an AI check your code and suggest that instead of doing those 5 lines of code, you're going to replace it with just 2 lines of code. That's that much more efficient code, right? And so there are some efficiencies, but to take it further, think about it this way: these transformers are trained on certain things, right, from the real world, and that's how that's what brings the intelligence is they're learned that they've learned from real life. What if you train an AI transformer, when you train a transformer based on specific business decisions? That transformer now can make better business decisions, right? It's almost like, I remember, like a few years ago, one of my one of the guys I knew, he got into this. It was this thing that this guy was doing about where he was an investor, and he was like, "Oh, invest with me because I use computers to make these good investment decisions, and because we have a history, so the computer can predict very well what's going to happen based on the old variables." It had nothing to do with AI. It was just a bunch of variables and then predicting what's going to happen. It was very flawed because real life has so many different variables, so of course he didn't it didn't work out like he expected it to. And we told him at that time, because he was investing his money with him, we were like, "Hey dude, just hold back, real life
Right,
doesn't work like this, right?"
right.
So I think he lost some money, but the bottom line is, now with AI, we can actually take into account a lot more variables. I mean, more than thousands of times more variables. So we can make those predictions better, even taking into account the geopolitical landscape and things that are happening at those levels that impact businesses. And so
Mm.
now we can make better decisions for business based on that. So of course, increased efficiency is, that's a no-brainer. Hand in hand with increased efficiency is increased productivity. Taking the example of, people who write stuff, technical writers, people who write code. I mean, GitHub has had Copilot for a while now, and there are, a few of our customers who are, software developers. They are using GitHub Copilot to throw out code, to create code, to make new code that would normally take a developer a bunch of days to create. Now they can do it within seconds. All they have to do is,
I didn't know that.
ask Copilot, right? So it's like dramatically changed the landscape as far as productivity goes. Um, Technical writers, I mean, it takes time for a human to write something that's good. And if you can ask an AI to do it and it can just throw it out there. Now, with efficiency and productivity, I'm going to throw in something that's new, that's just happening now. In the very near future, we're going to have self-driving cars. We're going to have possibly robots amongst us, working next to humans. How are people going to train these things, right? Like, to take the example of a self-driving car, how are you going to train a self-driving car? How is it going to learn what to do? I mean, there's so many variables, right? Think of it like a virtual world where you can train your transformer and then seamlessly implement it, bring that knowledge to the real world. So now you can speed up that learning process because it's a virtual world. Think of it like in a game. I remember like years ago, I used to play SimCity and I would always speed up time. And when you speed up time, things happen a lot faster, right? It was cheating. But now we can cheat like that, but bring all that what we learned in the cheating to real world, real life scenario, right? And from an NVIDIA perspective, it was like, they have they're already doing this for gaming world, right? They transformed the gaming world, like their real-time shaders and things like that. It just transformed it. So they can now give you a virtual world that behaves just like a real world, but yet you can throw in certain variables at certain times to make it learn that much better. And then what you've learned, you can bring it to real life. So you can train a robot how to walk in a virtual world and then implement it in the real world. And companies are actually starting to do this right now. This is happening now. This is not that's gonna happen. This is happening now. The training part of that is happening now. And that's what NVIDIA was talking about at Computex. So efficiency and productivity are going to be huge. These are going to be game changers because and that's what's going to change our lives, right? Human time is always going to flow at the same pace it's flowed ever, right? That we can't change that. But what we can change is how quickly we can learn in a certain amount of time. And that's what's going to change things for us. So efficiency and productivity. And I know you have some questions, so let me pause there and we'll go to the next one and let me go through some questions.
I mean, it started with with the cars, and I'm like, yeah, I think we're kind of ahead of that. If I'm not mistaken, Arizona has already rolled out, and San Fran has already rolled out self-driving cars. And so while you were thinking, I'm thinking to myself, now, this is funny, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, so that's a very complex process of getting, a car to understand when to speed up. Actually, they're bringing it to Houston by fall. They're going to be bringing the self-driving cars for like an Uber type thing. So that's coming here really, really soon. So I'm thinking, here I am thinking for the automation, for example, I make calls every day. It would be amazing to have AI call people and say, hey, my name is Mac or whatever. Of course, it's not me, but for me to take it up, of course, I'm thinking of things like this, like that. But I'm thinking of, you talk about efficiency, but could that be looked at as cheating to some extent, or is this one of those things where they're
Mac,
no,
this is how innovation happens.
Absolutely.
We need to look into this. We need to do what you just said, what you just talked about. We need to look into that because AI can be trained very easily to do kind of something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have AI that can talk, that can have a conversation just like a human. And a lot of times humans can't differentiate whether they're talking to an AI or a real person. So I think we need to look into that. That's good point there. Hey. So make a note of that. Let's dig a little bit deeper into it, and what we need to do as far as getting something like that in place. I think there's something there. And that brings me to the third thing, which is improved customer support. A lot of companies have already implemented AI type bots for customer support. Now I know, in the old days we all got a bad taste of automation. I mean, AT&T still sucks at that. I don't know why they need to just yank that whole thing out. Well, AT&T and Comcast, they're the worst, but it's the worst implementation. But anyway, so like for example, there are companies that are doing, and I'm not going to name names other than the two I already named. There are already companies that have AI bots that you interact with, and you cannot tell it's a human or a bot, and it seamlessly transfers to a human. So as you're talking, it can detect how frustrated the other person is getting and seamlessly do a handoff to a human.
Really?
So and
Wow.
we were doing this a while back. I mean, it's been a few years that we were doing this. So we were doing it slightly differently. It had nothing to do with AI. All we were doing was, and this was for car dealers. So we tapped into the voice lines. So we were on the back end, we were using IBM's Watson or Google, and we were doing analysis on the voice, on the conversation. And if the conversation showed a sentiment of that the customer was getting pissed off, it would send a text message to the manager while the conversation is happening. This was real time. So we were doing this we started doing it I think over maybe 2.5 years ago now. So this was, and we didn't build the AI part of it ourselves. We were just using IBM's Watson and Google services to get the sentiment from a conversation, and then based on that sentiment, if it's heading in the wrong direction, we can just alert somebody to take some do some intervention there. And dealerships paid good money for something like that because they wanted to know that hey, if a conversation is heading in the wrong direction, then one of the managers can get involved and steer it in the right way. So that was happening 2 to 3 years ago that we were doing. Now companies are replacing that, where you don't have a conversation with a human. It's not just sentiment analysis, but it's actual communication with AI. And then on top of that, there is sentiment analysis. So if AI detects, this conversation is getting out of hand, it can seamlessly transfer over to a human. People still need to focus a little more on implementation. Don't implement it like Comcast and AT&Ts of the world. That's the worst implementation. And I think they do it intentionally. They just want people to hang up. When people need support, they just want them to get angry and hang up. I don't know. So the fourth thing is better business decisions. Now we touched on this a little bit, right? I mean, this is pretty automatic, right? I mean, you can gather data, and I mean, the human mind cannot process the amount of data that, for example, a couple of NVIDIA's CUDA cores can, and they can make the predictions on what's going to happen and make better decisions, help us make better decisions. Now, this part is actually being built into Microsoft's Copilot, not the Copilot that I talked about in GitHub, but the Copilot that's coming to the Microsoft Office apps. You're going to be able to get data from Power BI, and the system can analyze it and then make the predictions, so you can make better decisions. Something that would have maybe taken you 4 or 5 days to comprehend, now you can just do it in an instant because it's all visual for you now, because something else has already done that heavy work. So that's going to be big, as making better business decisions. And of course, finally, hand in hand with better business decisions is competitive edge. Now, it's one thing to have a competitive edge because you're making better business decisions, but competitive edge, think of it this way. A company that designs certain piece of hardware, let's say, let's say this microphone. Now, a company can, design it. They can make the mock-ups. They can, see, what shape works for, acoustics and stuff like that. They can do it in the physical world, or a company that is capable of and has implemented doing all that in a virtual world is going to be so much ahead of somebody who's doing it in the physical world, because now they can go through so many iterations in a virtual world, where in the physical world there's only so many iterations. And we're seeing things like this happening now, companies where they are doing this in, like designing things in a virtual world as opposed to in the real world, and that virtual world is actually AI driven. So in other words, it's that virtual world behaves just like the physical world. So you can, I mean, so we can create things in virtual worlds now, fine tune them in a virtual world, and then bring them to the physical world.
I remember that in a topic we talked about. I don't know if it was a Microsoft that was doing it, but it was some goggles that engineers were using in order to look at schematics or construction. Yeah, something similar.
Yeah, it was Microsoft. I forgot the name, but yeah. So that was actually where engineers can talk to somebody in the field. So the example was, let's say somebody's off on an offshore rig somewhere, and the main engineer is back on land. The main engineer can, view in 3D what the person in the field is viewing, and they can walk them through it. But we are now taking that a step further, where the person that is doing something on that offshore rig is actually just a virtual environment. Right. So it could be, hey, we want to train robots to work in a certain environment because of, physical constraints or whatever. Well, now you can recreate that that world virtually, gather the data to train your robots. And it's not just one person. You can have a whole team working on this. I mean, the implications are huge on, this is something that's going to, think of it like merging the physical world with the gaming world, right? Because now that we figured out the shaders back in the day, we figured out, like we can mimic reality in a virtual environment, which is what all these games do. I mean, like when you play some of these games, the shadows, the things like that, all that's all computer, right?
Yeah.
It can predict where the light's going to be because the sun is at a certain angle, and it can automatically predict that. That is now coming to us, where we can use those type of worlds to train AI transformers and then make actual stuff for the physical world, which is just amazing. That merging of the worlds is just, it's just amazing. So these are the 5 ways that businesses right now can transform themselves using AI. I know some of these things people have already been using; they're already exposed to it. While some of these things people are not exposed to it. And I'll give you a little example. So we use HubSpot over here, as our CRM system, and HubSpot released something called ChatSpot. And I don't know, Mac, if you've played with ChatSpot.
I haven't played with it yet, no.
Yeah, so I've been using ChatSpot. So basically, it is an AI-driven engine. It's a ChatGPT-based transformer, right? So, but it's specific to the info that's in HubSpot. So you can ask it things like, if you want to see some kind of report, or you can tell it, hey, give me all my customers in Mexico, whatever, and it'll just do that. So HubSpot can be pretty complex. It looks really simple, but some of the things can be very deep, embedded deep in there. So now you can just talk to ChatSpot, and it can get that stuff for you without you having to click and get to the right spot. It's just,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's really
Oh,
good. I'll send you an invite for it because
please.
yeah. And I mean, it's, it's little things like that uh that make a huge difference in our lives, and we never really think about it, and it becomes second nature. Like, I never really thought that deep and hard about how ChatSpot and Chat GPT, how they're being used, is really AI that's being used.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I'm looking into is, how can I get my data that I need fast? I want it now.
Right.
Right? So if I need a certain report, as opposed to going into HubSpot, going in there, digging into the data, creating that report, I can just ask ChatSpot, hey, give me, create me a report like this. And you can either talk to it or you can just type to it, but it understands natural language. The pace of change is still increasing exponentially.
Yes.
So, Moore's law is kind of out of the window. Not that we're not following Moore's law, but we've like broken the ceiling of Moore's law.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what really happened within the last year. Ever since the breakthrough in AI happened, things are just exponentially becoming faster. The innovation is happening at an exponential rate, and hopefully, everybody who's listening to this is already ready to accept it and implement some of the things that are coming out, because this is really what's going to transform businesses. And it's like, how many Fortune 500 companies survive in a 10-year period? There's actually quite a bit that fall off the Fortune 500. There's a lot of churn in that space.
Yeah.
And that churn, I think, will increase because of the change of pace and innovation. That's going to translate into that. So there's going to be new companies that are coming out that are just going to, I mean, take the example of Nvidia and Intel, that big elephant versus a little ant. And now that little ant has made the life of that big elephant miserable.
Yeah.
So,
This is true.
so with that, everybody have a great day. It was fun talking about AI. We're already past our time, but we can talk on this for days.
All day.
Exciting times. It's just exciting times. Have a good
All
one,
right,
everyone.
guys. We'll see you guys.